Leadership is a journey, and every great leader has faced challenges along the way. Welcome to the TEMSA Leadership Coaching Calls hosted by Phil Sanderson, Senior EMS Leader, National Speaker, and Certified Leadership Coach. In each session, you'll hear real stories, real strategies, and real solutions from those who have been in your shoes. Join the conversation, get inspired, and take your leadership to the next level.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. For those who were in the waiting room, I hope you enjoyed some great music from Rocky Top to Change is Going to Come. We have got an exciting guest today, some great information to share. It is March the 7th, another first Friday of the month, and this is our 11th mentoring call. So, man, times are getting away from us fast. I want to quickly, and I'm going to say this a couple more times throughout this morning, I want everybody to mark your calendar for April the 4th. That's our next month's call. We're going to have a special call. It's going to be a 1-hour call. That's our anniversary, first year anniversary. All of our previous guests that have been on this call since last April will be joining us for a special 1-hour roundtable. You don't want to miss that. So much knowledge will be coming into that call and into the room. Again, as always, we do this call because the most important person you'll ever lead is yourself. Subscribe to our podcast hosted by Eric Kloss on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. These calls here, the mentor calls, are also on the YouTube channel, the Leadership Mentoring Calls. You can search Tennessee EMS Education Association or Tennessee EMS Educators. And as I said a while ago, I'm going to make this announcement several times because I would love for everybody to attend April 4th, a special 1-hour mentoring call, which is next month. All of our previous speakers, our guests, will be on here sharing their knowledge in a roundtable environment. Well, this morning, we have a gentleman that I would guarantee there's nobody on this call that doesn't know him or have some kind of connection to him. We call him Chief Miller, Chief Greg Miller. He is currently the Vice President, Midwest Regional Operations at Amerimed EMS. And our topic, our conversation today is going to be the leadership climb and talking about your roadmap, how you get to the top, insight, strategies, any stories that we can come up with. So, Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself and don't be humble.
Good morning, Phil, and good morning to everybody out there. First of all, thank you. It's an honor to be on this call. It's an honor to see what Tennessee is doing with EMS leadership, from our leadership classes to our podcast to even this leadership call. I think we're making a change, and kind of the reason for the song, "The Change is Going to Come." Mine started a long time ago, 1990. I didn't set out thinking that I was going to be an EMS leader. In fact, I didn't even envision myself going into EMS. I graduated high school and then went straight to college in Knoxville. I was going to become a computer engineer. Computers were becoming a household name and people were wanting them in their homes, and I could have been Bill Gates, but I started into college at computer engineering, and I was about 2 weeks into my second semester. And, we really didn't have cell phones back then. You had bag phones, and I couldn't afford one of those yet. So I had a Motorola pager and 25 cents that I would stop at a payphone. And I was sitting in class and my pager went off for a 911. And I walked out in the hall and I used the payphone and I called a number. And that's when I was told that one of my best friends in Jefferson County had drowned. He had been fishing at a local quarry and he didn't come home, and they went to check, and there laid his fishing pole and his tackle box, and there was 2 slides there in the mud where he had lost his balance and slipped and went into the quarry. So I left class that day and I drove to Jefferson County, and I sat on the banks of that quarry for 3 days, and I watched EMS personnel and firefighters and rescue squad personnel do all kinds of things that I didn't even know what they were doing at the time, but they were doing dragon missions. They had some scuba divers and stuff in there. And this was a basically a bottomless quarry. It connected to the mines. Most of y'all know about 85% of Jefferson County is hollow underneath because it has so many mines underneath it. And finally, on the third day, they brought a tethered submarine from Texas. And again, we're talking 1990, 1991. That was kind of unheard of technology. And they found his body about 150 foot down. And when it tried to raise back up, it got caught under a tree. And then when they did discover the body and they recovered it and they brought it to the surface, and the reverence that all of these people displayed, and how they lined the banks and they brought the body up and they were greeting the family members and us friends that were on the bank, and everybody took their hats off, and they put his body in the waiting ambulance, and they took him to the hospital for pronouncing him. That impacted me to my core so much that the following Monday I drove to Knoxville, withdrew from that college, and within a 1 week span, I joined the rescue squad. I joined the volunteer fire department, and I went to Walter State, and I enrolled in what was then called first responder, and then into EMT, and then we had EMT IV, and then to paramedic, and that's how it all got started. I started my career at Jefferson County EMS, and I worked my way up through the ranks there to the rank of deputy director, and I was the EMA coordinator for the county. And I did that until I was teaching a class at Jefferson County for the emergency management, and I looked up, and there were two men in the back of the room in suits, and I'm sitting there scratching my head, hoping I paid my IRS taxes and everything, but those were two men from Walter State, and they came and wanted to talk to me about becoming the paramedic program director at Walter State Community College. So that was the first change in my path. And I did that for about 10 years, was the paramedic instructor, then the paramedic program director, and then grew that over a couple of campuses, and then got recruited to go to Gatlinburg Fire Department to become the fire chief and EMS chief of Gatlinburg, because I had then several years of fire and EMS background, and did that for many years until in 2018 I went to Sumner County. Sumner County had recruited me to come down there and take over chief of their emergency services, and I did that until I retired from government with my 30 plus years experience in 2023, and I was retired for about 5 minutes, and my phone rang, and Amerimed called and said, don't hang up your boots yet. We got some work for you to do. So that's kind of how I got my start. A lot of people don't realize that I didn't just wake up one day and decide I wanted to become an EMT or a paramedic. There was no patriarchal lineage in my family. No one in my family was in EMS or firefighting prior to me. So that's how I got here. And then I'm sure a lot of people on this call, because I've seen so many people from speaking at conferences and emceeing conferences and stuff through the years, there's been pockets of notoriety and chaos and everything else throughout my career as a leader, that, as like you said, how did I get to where I'm at, and what were the steps? And if I sit back, I would scratch my head and go, would I make those same decisions? And, I don't feel like I opened those doors. They were open for me. So I guess I would, do the same thing.
Well, great. That's a great story, Greg. And like you say, there's probably a lot of folks that doesn't really know that, and those humble beginnings. And that's in so many stories of success, there's always those humble beginnings and chaos and fire and adversity. And certainly, I used to say, coincidence, but I actually had someone to correct me one time here. It's been probably 6-7 years ago, and I think it's more divine, not coincidence. So you were meant to be here, because as a mentor of mine and I share this a lot, has said many times, we never know the impact it will make on this side of heaven. And there's so many lives you've impacted, but it doesn't come without mentoring and networking and mistakes. Greg, tell us about some of that journey along the way in this short time that we have, about mentoring and the networking and building relationships. And then also tell us about, how you overcome mistakes, because we all make them, we all stumble. And this is a great book, and a great term I like to use is failing forward. Getting up and just correcting yourself and moving on. So, talk to us a little bit about some of the mentors that you've had, or some of the advice you've been given, some of the relationships you built, and maybe some of the mistakes that you've made along the way that's helped you become better.
That's a great point. Mentors are vital in this profession, in every profession, but in this profession, I feel that they are crucial. There are so many. I've had so many mentors, people that never knew they were mentors, and someone does not need to be your boss or your supervisor. You do not have to be subordinate to someone for them to be a mentor. I get mentorship from field crews that I see. I get encouragement from them because there's some that come into work every day that are self-motivated, and they don't have to be told to wash the ambulance, or they don't have to be told to do a rig check. They don't have to be told to be at work on time. It's expected. Many of us on this call, we started back when we would do this job for free, and many of us did. And I don't think it's a cultural change. I think it's just a change. And I feel like positive leadership is contagious. And if we will just surround ourselves with those people that have those good, positive, contagious behaviorship, then we can take back over the things that we disapprove of in our profession. There's a lot of us that scratch our head and say it doesn't look like it did 30 years ago. Well, no, that's the case. And I'm glad it doesn't, because we wouldn't have a lot of the technology that we have. But we've got to make sure that the selfless service of EMS, the compassion of EMS, those that we know erodes in some people, especially after 3 a.m. when they've already run 16 calls in this shift, their compassion begins to wane. But we can take that back over. So mentorship is key. I've had multiple mentors from bosses and supervisors to, there's some of my mentors are on this call. Gerald Foon has mentored probably more people across this state than anybody else, just because of who he is and the type of person that he is. Eric Kloss is another example of that, just because every time you see Eric, he's the same. And I don't mean that as a negative. He's got a smile on his face, he's encouraging, and he always wants to elevate the people that he's around. And I feel like that's what we're supposed to do as leaders. We're leaders, not managers. It's people that we're leading, and reaching down and pulling them up with us as we go. And sometimes we're pulling someone because we've got a hold of someone else's coattail, and they're pulling us up as we go. So don't set out to say, I'm going to be a mentor. You say in your opening, the most important person you can lead is yourself. If we do that every day, if we approach every day that, okay, what can I do today? What can I do today better than what I did yesterday? How can I make my organization better today than it was yesterday? Rather than being the negative Nancy, and no offense to anybody on the call, it may be Nancy, is just to say, I'm going to be the best me today that I can be. That turns into the best form of mentorship that we can do.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about mentorship on this call. Matter of fact, our previous guest, David Blevins, talked a lot about mentorship on this call. And mentorship is so valuable, as you said. It provides invaluable insights, and that's helping the mentee, someone, to grow. We say, there's several of us that say this: we want to leave it better than we found it, and the only way we leave it better than we found it is to share our knowledge with other folks. And the art of networking and building relationships, it fosters confidence in people that maybe we're pouring into to help them to become better. And then also, when we're networking and building relationships, Greg, we never know who we're building a relationship with. You never know. You could be in a circle. I used to tell students, whenever I taught EMTs, students, we would do we would do a night on just professionalism and how to be a good EMT and things that your mama taught you, the golden rule and mind your manners kind of thing. But one of the things I'd always say is you always need to be on stage because you never know who you may be sitting at a table with sharing a lunch or a meal and you don't know who they are, or maybe you do know who they are, and you never know who they might be thinking, I'm looking for a guy, I'm looking for a girl or lady that has your qualities. You don't know that. So always be on stage when you're trying to network and don't shy away from the opportunities to network and build those relationships. And like we said earlier, you're going to make those mistakes and just get up and keep moving forward. So, Greg, I told you when we started this thing, this call will go fast. We're at 7:15, so we try to go to about 7:20, 7:25, 7:22 so before we start asking any questions. But what about mistakes? What about failure? Have you ever failed? Have you ever had any
Oh,
mistakes? Or has it
I,
just been perfect road for you?
First responders are the backbone of our communities, but often funding restrictions leave stations without essential resources. That's where Serve Strong, Corbin Scott Goad Memorial Foundation steps in. They understand that not every response is a rescue, which is why they focus on ensuring first responders are well rested, physically fit, mentally strong, and equipped with the resources and education they need to save lives. Serve Strong is dedicated to filling in the gaps for first responders, addressing needs that stations might not be able to cover. The foundation exists because of the compassion and professionalism of first responders, witnessed firsthand in the midst of tragic circumstances. If your department needs support, or if you want to support their mission, visit servestrong.us. That's servestrong.us. Serve Strong, Corbin Scott Goad Memorial Foundation. Because when we're strong, our communities are strong too. Upcoming events. Mark your calendars for Serve Strong Upper Cumberland Pickleball Tournament on Saturday, May the 3rd. You can learn more by visiting servestrong.us/pickleball. And don't miss out on the first ever Serve Strong Bash happening Saturday, October the 4th in Fairfield Glade. Save that date. Serve Strong, Corbin Scott Goad Memorial Foundation, filling in the gaps for first responders.
Or has it just been perfect road for you?
it's not been perfect. It's not been straight. It's not been without bumps and pits and dips and boulders and everything else. The people that say they don't make mistakes are the ones that I'm kind of afraid to be around because either they're lying or they're naive or something's wrong. Because I've also heard that fail is the first attempt in learning. I still make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. Sometimes I will come out of a situation and go, you know what? I didn't react the most appropriate way in that situation, or maybe that was a problem. I did react rather than respond. So, many people on this call highlighted and, how would you like to look back and go that you're most remembered for the most destructive natural disaster in the history of the state of Tennessee, the most costly natural disaster in the history of Tennessee, even though I didn't start that fire and I didn't cause it, but that's hard on a person to look back and go, you know what, my highlight of my career was being the chief of an incident commander of an incident that burned 18,000 plus acres, 2,545 homes burned in less than 8 hours, wind driven at 87 miles an hour, 14 fatalities, over 200 and some patients that had to be treated and transported, firefighters that were out working and for many, many hours, many operational periods, and knowing that their own home and everything that they owned and had worked for was in ashes. that's hard because we all want to. What is the best thing that we can do if we're working a call? Is get a save. And, you know, a firefighter is no different. You want to be able to show up, and if that home is 30% contained, you want to be able to leave there and it's, you know, 50% at worst was damaged, even though it's going to get bulldozed down and the insurance is going to write a check and they're going to build a new house. We are glorified repairmen and women. We get called when something's broken. They expect us to fix it. So it's hard on the psyche to know that, you know, there was a big fire and it was much bigger than we could handle. If you do the math, Gatlinburg Fire Department is a small agency. Gatlinburg is 10.56 square miles. It's got 3 stations and 37 full-time employees. So you're like, well, it's Gatlinburg and you got 150,000 people putting heads in beds every night. But yeah, but it's ran like a little bitty micro town. And if you do the math per NFPA guidelines, we would have had to have over 30,000 firefighters there to take care of that fire. And we had 37. Now we had mutual aid coming from all over the state. Sometimes your failure is because you don't know. You know, if I had a crystal ball, if I'd have known the fire was coming, if I'd have known there was all of this stuff coming, then maybe I could have called multiple state mutual aid and do some of that. But that's you don't know. So that's a failure, and that's changed. And there's been a lot of things change in that community since then. I guess some people call me the caca magnet because when I retired from Gatlinburg and I went to Sumner County, I'd been boots on the ground in Sumner County for not even 6 months yet. And we had the worst mass murder in the history of Tennessee right there in Sumner County. And here I am on the news and we're talking about that. And some guy kills his entire family of 9 and bludgeons them. And comments are, is this an actor? Ain't this the same guy that was in the Gatlinburg fires and now he's in Sumner County for a mass murder? And then fast forward to 2020, and of all places in the state of Tennessee for COVID to hit first, where did it hit? It hit in Gallatin, Tennessee. We had an entire nursing home that we had to evacuate because all the staff were infected, and all the patients began to get infected, and the state health department was involved, and the decision was made from the governor's office down to the commissioner of health is let's evacuate the entire place because it was still new. We didn't know how big, bad, and ugly this monster called COVID would be. So they said, all right. So we had a strike team deployment and we evacuated an entire nursing home overnight. And then who's on the news? And it's on Fox News and it's on CNN. It's nationwide. And they're like, holy cow, this guy looks awful familiar. So, you know, wrong place, wrong time, right place, right time. It depends on the lens that you're looking for. So yeah, I've been in a lot of those situations, unfortunately, but thank goodness and the grace of God and the resiliency and the ability to get up and put your pants on and come back to work and not throw my hands up and quit. I'm still here and I appreciate that.
Well, you were meant to be there. There was no mistake. You were meant to be there. As we already talked about, you know, there's, you know, like I said, I used to believe in coincidences, but I think divinely you were there. There's impacts that you've made that you'll never really realize. But wow, that is kind of crazy, right? That those things kind of follow you. Well, we are at that time of the hour, 20 after, 21 after. Start putting those questions into the chat. We'll definitely want to give those to Chief Miller to answer. You know, one thing I just want to add to this is, as you are growing in your leadership climb, as you're growing into your leadership journey, there's something that I like to call polka dotted pink elephants, and basically those are distractors. And so many times you can get on a road, and we've always heard that, you know, there's a fork in the road. You're going left, you're going right. You know, which way you're going to go. Well, those polka dotted pink elephants can definitely take you off track in your journey, and you can feel like, hey, this is the right way to go. I would encourage everybody that every day, first of all, if you don't have a mentor, and we talk about that a lot in this call, if you don't have mentor or mentors, I'd encourage you to have several. Make sure you have those folks that you can reach out and go, you know, I'm scratching my head on this. What would be your advice? Building those relationships, building those networkings. But to try to prevent yourself from getting off on the wrong track and following those polka dotted pink elephants is create a focused environment where you are reflecting daily. Greg, as the VP, as the vice president of a very large organization, I would I would go as far as guess, we'll just say guess, that there are many times in your day where you just stop and pause because there are decisions that have to be made that not only just affect you, and I know you well enough, you're not worried about you, but they affect all of the staff, all of their families, all of the patients, all everybody. So as a leader, beware of polka dotted pink elephants. Create a safe, focused environment and stop and pause and reflect daily on this journey, this decisions that you are making. And also, the only thing that you can really control is your time. So implement time management strategies because you can get off on the wrong polka dotted elephant and look up and go, the day is gone, the week is gone, the month is gone, and I'm gone nowhere.
That's what I was
So,
going to say right there, Phil, is time management is the key. The sometimes the pink polka dotted elephant and the distractors that keep us from being successful are ones that we put there or we've established in our regiment. Sometimes this becomes our pink polka dotted elephant because we're connected to it. And it's either an email or a conference call or a budget memo or something like that. And that's taking away from you being in face to face in front of your people and being a leader, being an active leader rather than an absent leader. So those are the things that can be the pink polka dotted elephant. That I think we got some questions popping up in the chat, but absolutely time management and self-discipline of making yourself, set your guardrails and try to stay within them helps a lot too.
yeah. So we have a question here. What do you do to prioritize your mental health going through all you went through since the wildfires? Mental health is a big topic these days. And even as a leader, a busy day, what do you do?
So thanks, Sarah, for that question. Sarah's been a friend for many, many years. I'll be honest with you. I prioritized mental health for my employees during that time. And we had the chaplains come in and we had 2 or 3 groups. And there's a group out of Maryville, Tennessee, Blount County that use animals. They use horses to do some stress debriefing and some mental health checkups and everything. So we did all of our employees through that. PTSD is real. It really is. I suffered it as well and probably still have some lingering effects from that. I didn't prioritize it for myself enough because I'll be honest, here was one of my failures. I said, I'm the leader. I've got to make sure my people are taken care of. And then I was on these news interviews all the time. And then I was in FEMA meetings every day, 14, 15 hours a day for many, many months after the fires. And it wasn't until after that we finally got to pack everything up and close the suitcase. And I sat down that I was just like, I'm as broke as anybody because I tried to be the fixer rather than allowing myself to be fixed. So that was one of my fail moments. So it was only later, Sarah, that I was able to really focus on that and have some counseling and realize that, hey, I am vulnerable as well. And I'm not ironclad. I can have chinks in my armor, and that's what helped me.
Well, certainly everybody definitely needs to take time. And just because you're the leader doesn't mean that you're the all in all fixer. You're a human being as well. And you definitely gotta take care of yourself. Another question here in the chat says, what keeps you going? What keeps you going every day? It's chaos every day in some way. What keeps you going?
Well, a lot of that is probably my type A personality. A lot of that is probably my OCD that I've got, that I'm just driven. I want to be there. I want to get up and I want to do it. I would lose my mind if I sat at home every day. You could only go fishing so many times. And what you said earlier, leadership is easy when everything's perfect. But how often is everything perfect? Look at what we've dealt with since COVID. We've got the supply chain issues, and we've got inflation and the budgets. We've never had to deal with the challenges that we're dealing with now. Look at staffing. We used to have stacks of applications on our desk now, and now we're turning over every stone, and all we're doing, there's no more EMTs and paramedics today than there were this time last year. Everybody's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and we've got this merry-go-round of employees, and until we get more dumped in. So I say all that to say this: there is so much to do. Who has time to stop going? We've got to keep going, and it takes all of us. And that's why I'm glad that we're fostering a culture of growing leaders and mentoring leaders in the state of Tennessee, because we need more. We need everybody. And that doesn't mean you have to have a position of rank or title to be the leader. We need people, boots on the ground, that are throwing up suggestions, because we need their ideas as well. An analogy that I've used once or twice, and I take a glass of Coke, and if your leadership is the piece of ice, you put one piece of ice in that glass of Coke, what does it do? It stays on the top. But the only way I can cool and affect the temperature of that entire glass is keep adding more leaders, keep growing more leaders. And if I fill that glass with leaders, then I've got ice from the bottom to the top. It doesn't all float and stick out the top of the Coke. It infiltrates from the bottom to the top. And the leadership can be like ice in the glass of Coke or Sprite or bourbon or whatever you want the liquid to be. But the more you put in it, the more it fills it, and the more it affects the temperature of everything around it.
Well, that's great. Good advice, Greg. That's producer Lee is telling us by that little song there, it's time for us to wrap up. And these calls go by so fast. Thank you so much for your time. I'd like to leave everybody with a couple of little takeaways here. As you're building your leadership climb, as your journey, build a strong leadership foundation. Build a strong foundation. Find mentors, network, find folks who will help you go along. Embrace growth and transition. Get out of your comfort zone. That's very important. And overcome the challenges. As Greg said, every day is not going to be perfect just because you're a leader. Please come back and join us next month, April the 4th. Once again, a 1-hour special episode. Invite a friend, bring your entire group. You guys join by conference room and have all of your command staff, as many as your field providers. You don't want to miss this. We're going to have 10 or 11 of our past guests sharing all of the knowledge they can fit in a 60-minute time span. And remember, most of all, the reason why we do this every day is the most important person you'll ever lead is yourself. Thank you again, Greg. Thank you for joining all of our guests. And everybody have a blessed and wonderful day and the rest of this weekend. We'll see you again on April the 4th for a 1-hour episode.
Thanks, guys.